So, Fun Dead was released sometime in February 2014, and after it was so greatly anticipated, how do Tom and his team follow up on it? Would they give us another lackluster filler episode like Hide and Seek? Or would they give us something equally as good as Fun Dead? Well, a couple months later, we got PowerEdd, which ended up kind of being a mix of both. PowerEdd is a superhero episode. Eduardo, now voiced by a different actor, installs a nuclear-powered satellite dish on the roof of his house, just as Ed is fixing a problem with his satellite dish. After a freak accident, both of them are given superpowers rather than be infected with radiation poisoning, which is what would realistically happen. But of course, this episode is about superheroes, so realism is not of the utmost importance here. Ed uses his newfound abilities to become PowerEdd, and since every great hero needs a villain, Eduardo emerges as numero uno. The two of them throw down Captain America Civil War style, and aside from the climax, nothing major really happens in this story. We see Ed mess around with his powers and make a costume, but then it goes right into him fighting Eduardo. And speaking of Eduardo, we never see what he does when he finds out he has powers. He gets zapped in the opening and then shows up right before the climax takes place just to give Ed something superhero-y to do. I guess I could say it seems rushed in that sense, but at the same time, it actually has a decent pace. It flows very naturally, and scenes transition into each other really nicely. It even goes a little deeper into Ed and Eduardo's past. Although, I can't lie, I think it's funnier when Eduardo has a less significant reason to hate Ed. But what they do with him here makes sense and is perfectly credible. I got so excited when I heard that Eddsworld was going to be doing a superhero episode. There were just so many things they could do with the idea, and while I'm fine with what was given, I can't help but feel like PowerEdd comes off as a bit of a missed opportunity. Instead of having two characters be given superpowers, how much more exciting would it have been to make it a team standoff? Like an Avengers vs. Justice League kind of story with a superpowered Ed, Matt, and Tom going against a superpowered Eduardo, Mark, and John. It's refreshing to get an Eddsworld episode that's actually about Ed for a change, but why did he and Eduardo have to be the only ones to get superpowers? We do get a scene where Tom turns into a monster, but that doesn't add anything. It's weirdly animated too, since it wasn't made clear if Eduardo's laser came down to hit him or if he was hit by the laser while he was in the air. There are a lot of things that could have been done with the idea of Eddsworld tackling superheroes, but because it does so little in so little time, it ultimately leaves me just a touch bit disappointed. The animation, on the other hand, is great. Anthony Price is to thank for making it look so good, and it really does look so good. At first I thought the style was a bit too pointy, but the more I went back to this episode, the more it started growing on me. It's a very action-oriented episode, so an animation style like this would be needed. It also gives it a bit of an edge, which not many other episodes have had. Anthony Price is one of my favorite legacy animators because of this. I'd love to see more episodes in this style. Although, in keeping with presentation, I'm completely split about the music. Todd definitely captures the feel of a superhero movie, but again, like with his other scores, I don't find it very memorable. Unless it's sampling the Eddsworld theme for about the 6th or 7th time in the whole episode. If there was anything about the music that I didn't like, it's how many times it incorporates the Eddsworld jingle. Todd uses it a lot in this episode, and while it's not a major flaw that ruins the whole thing, I still found it a little annoying. Come to think of it, there are a lot of small things about PowerEdd that bother me. I still don't know what's up with that Tom monster. Brock Baker as Eduardo is really distracting since I was a fan of his before he took over. And for a show that's supposed to have a timeless value to it, it sure doesn't seem to have a problem with throwing Nick Fury in there. There's also a joke about someone committing suicide that seems a touch too dark for Eddsworld standards. And sure, you can come at me saying, what about the milkman driving off the cliff in Santa Claus 1? Well, the reason why it worked in that episode is because he's killing himself for a silly and ridiculous reason. That being Ed not thanking him for sending a Christmas card. The joke is that he's getting worked up and going to these extremes over something so trivial. In PowerEdd, we don't know why this guy wants to kill himself. It could be depression, his life could be falling apart, maybe he's going through a divorce, it could be anything. But I'm nitpicking way too much about this. In the end, these are all just that. Oh dear. In the end, these are all just that, nitpicks. As a whole, I still enjoyed PowerEdd. I wouldn't say it's as good as Fun Dead, but I liked it all the same. It has a good story with some nice character moments, some great animation, and while I can't listen to Eduardo's voice without thinking of Brock Baker, I think he's a good replacement for Chris O'Neill. I still find parts of PowerEdd to be a little disappointing, but for what it is, I had a good time with it. Grab your supersuit and go see what you're missing.